It's Platt, and today we go to South America for a glass of wine. That's next on Platt's Drink of the Week. All right, guys, I think I got something neat today. Something I don't talk enough about, and I'm ashamed of it. It's wine. I have actually here we have Mendoza Station 2023 Malbec. I purchased this bottle at $6.99. It comes in at 12.5% alcohol by volume. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know I don't do a lot of wine content, and I don't know why I don't, because actually the older I've gotten, the more I've appreciated wine. To me, just the buzz is a little more mellow, and the older I get, the more mellow I get, so it does work out. If you're more interested in a little more content for winemaking, I'll leave a link up here. I did years ago a series on all the major wine varietals, wine growing regions. So if you're wanting to learn kind of the ins and outs of wine, check that out. And it's still valid information years later. All right, so let's jump in. First, what is Malbec? Malbec is a purple grape that produces a red wine. Now, one of the things about wine is it's not the color of the juice, it's the skin color. You can make white wines out of red wine grapes. It's when you leave the grape skins in that you get the color. Malbec is one of 6 grapes used in the classic red Bordeaux blends that you'll see at fancy restaurants and high-end resorts, what have you. A lot of the more expensive wines that are out there. The origin of the grape is in northern Burgundy, where it's sometimes what was referred to as Côte. Today, as far as being grown in France, it's generally grown in southwest France in an area called Cahors, hopefully I said that right, and it is sometimes called Côte Noire. Now, one time it was popular in France, but through a series of events, it has become really the national grape of Argentina now. Now, how it got down there was an interesting story. In the mid-1800s, a French agronomist named Michel Pujol brought some cuttings down there to plant overseas. There had been wineries in South America for at least a couple hundred years, and different grape varieties made them over there. Luckily, Malbec made it in the mid-1800s, because in the late 1800s in France, most of the vineyards were almost nearly wiped out by a pest known as phylloxera. It's a little mite or something that kind of will eat through the roots. They ended up having to take American rootstocks that Vitis lambrusco is the species name that was resistant to that and transplanted over there. But luckily they took some of the old roots down to South America where it's kind of isolated and they didn't have to worry about phylloxera. And a lot of the classic old styles with the old rootstocks are grown down there. And this helped create Argentina as a monster in the wine industry. It is the largest producer in South America. It's also the largest producer of Malbec in the world. If you talk Malbec, that is definitely a spot. The predominant growing region down there, their big region, is known as Mendoza, where a bulk of the Malbec is produced from. Good way to describe Mendoza, it's their Napa Valley. It's probably the most popular growing region. It's where most people think the best product comes from. I know folks in Sonoma and Walla Walla and other growing regions in the U.S. are probably screaming right now. But for the population at large, Napa is our big wine growing region, and that is Mendoza. 75% of the vineyards in Argentina are in that Mendoza region. Now, Mendoza, the vineyards there are kind of unique because they're at higher elevations. A lot of the wineries are between 2,800 and 5,000 feet. Now, you know that higher elevation generally leads to colder climate, which leads to killing frost, makes it tough to almost impossible to grow grapes in that elevation. But luckily, to the unique climate of Argentina, they get to produce wines at higher elevations. Some people say it's literally closer to the sun. You generally tend to get more direct, intense light from the sun that helps the grapes. At least that's the story they're telling us. One of the Malbec, again, is popular in Argentina, but can be grown pretty much anywhere red wine grapes are. Here in the U.S., we're talking about Washington, Oregon, and of course, California. Before Prohibition, Malbec was actually a popular varietal, pardon me. It was used in a lot of blends. It was popular in blends. What a lot of people don't know is here in the U.S., if you buy a Cabernet or Merlot or anything labeled like that, it only has to be 75% of that grape. A lot of times you'll have 10 to 15% of another grape blended in, and Malbec was one of those grapes. After Prohibition kind of faded out of popularity and didn't come back until the 1990s when a style of red blend called Meritage had became real popular in the California vineyards, and Malbec was one of the blends in that. Now, one of the things that people ask for up front with a wine is what foods does it pair well? A lot of people love wine with food. It works great. And Malbecs work great with blue cheese, mushrooms, roasted peppers, gamey style meats, things like bison and venison, and fatty fish like salmon. Now, as far as the company that produced that, normally in these videos I kind of do a couple minutes on the company itself. What you'll find in wine production a lot of times is a lot of what's called sourcing. Someone else is kind of making it and you slap a brand, a label, or someone's more of an importer of the product than necessarily the producer. And that's a little bit of that here. This is produced in Argentina in the Mendoza region, but it's produced for it's a vineyard here in the U.S., the Rutherford Ranch Winery, based in Napa Valley. Now, they conceptually could grow Malbec themselves, but if it's a long-standing vineyard, they probably had Cab or Pinot Noir, Merlot already grown. And if you wanted to add a wine to your portfolio, it's just easier to source. And if you're going to get good Malbec, well, Argentina is probably the spot. So that's who produces that. But a lot of times, you'll see in a lot of these wine labels, there's not a lot of story, or there's not a story of two founders, just out of college living the dream. It's a little less of that in the wine world. All right, well, so that being said, enough talking. Let's get to drinking. All right, this is a nice deep maroon, fairly dark, don't get a lot of light coming through. Let's go for the nose. All right, I get a lot of red fruit on the nose. Reminds me a little Pinot Noir. One of the things when I've tried Malbec in the past that I've kind of liked is plenty of fruit, but it's a little more complex. It's not just tasting like a grape jam. You get down kind of some of your simpler red wines, however. Also, Malbecs tend to have a little more tannins, so that kind of balances out that fruit a little bit. So let's go ahead and jump in. That's nice. Plenty of fruit and sweetness up front, but it's not too much. Body-wise, it doesn't get viscous with the sweetness. It's there, but it goes down nice. 12.5%. You're going to feel a little bit in the chest. Not a lot, but you're going to feel it. And you're like, oh, okay, something's going down there. Not a long finish, but it malingers a little bit, but it didn't sit there too long. A little tannin on the back end. This, to me, I get a little more sweetness on this one. $6.99. This is probably a younger Malbec that probably hadn't had time to mature. Again, there's enough tannins in Malbec. You could probably age it a little bit. This is still fairly young, so I'm probably getting more of that fruit up front. But really nice. I do pick up just a hint of, I don't want to say pepper, spice, but some kind of some kind of light spice, mellow, maybe just a dusting of a pepper on top of something instead of cracking a bunch of pepper. Again, a little more complexity, plenty of sweetness, but it's not over the top. I love these kind of wines. Really nice drinkers. Have got a nice body, but again, it's not dominating. If you drink a big Zin, sometimes big Zinfandels, and I'm not talking about white Zinfandels, I'm talking about reds, kind of remind me of big IPAs. You love the flavor some, but you too much of it. This is more like a nice pale ale, I guess is a good way to say. It has some of those aspects, but it's not ramped up too much. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or things that the liquor store you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.